Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the interviews that, if you've ever missed any interview, this is one you cannot miss. This is going to be another deep diving edition of the End Zone Club, where we are doing a part two of an interview that we ran a couple of weeks ago with none other than around Dallas. Well, we felt a necessity to bring this young man back to share another part of his story, because originally there was a lot that we allowed to fall through the cracks in conversation that we did not have, so that we could set it up for a further date. But today is that date, and without no other ado, let's introduce Ralph. Ralph, how are you doing today, sir?
What's going on, Anthony? I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, sir. First of all, I wanted to say welcome back to our podcast.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate you inviting me back to the podcast to share some more of the life stories, the travels that I've had. You know, the first time I was on here, it was very good. It was a very good meeting. But I know there were some details that I could have shared, and I feel like now I can go ahead and open up, since the world has had an introduction to the big. So I definitely appreciate you having me back on the platform, good brother.
So good. While we're opening up, sir, I want you just to start in your story where you feel necessary, and man, let's just go from there.
Yeah, no problem, man. I know about some of the youth experiences that I had, you know, what I'm doing today. But I think I left out a few items, you know, in terms of some that I had endured as a youth. And I think that sharing those things could be very impactful to someone who might be in the same situation, might be looking for some direction or some perspective on how to solve the issue. And, you know, that I think that issue is basically around child abuse, you know, being neglected as a youth. You know, there's several different forms of neglect. Mine's came in the form of by my step-parent. You know, I was about 8 years old. My mom got married. An individual who she had gotten married to, you know, he wasn't that fond of me being around in the relationship. So, you know, from the start, there was some difficulties there. And, you know, a few times I had even witnessed some abuse going down directed towards my mother that I had to, you know, intercede. You know, as an 8-year-old, seeing those kind of things develop, you're not really used to having those things in your life, could be very traumatic, right? And I think that was the starting point of me having some anger, you know, and some resentment issues developing, you know, from an early age. And then, you know, as the years progressed, you know, there were certain instances that occurred that were abusive in nature, not only physical, but verbally, right? You know, verbal abuse is impactful as well, because words do hurt. But I was able to endure those things, and what I did was I leaned on family, right? I leaned on cousins, you know, leaned on uncles, aunts for some support, and they became like my secondary support system. You know, I was at 14, you know, I had gotten kicked out of the house by my stepfather, which is when it all came to a head. I was a culmination, and that situation was one where, you know, I was working. I was always working when I was young. I was always a hustler. You know what I'm saying? I had my first job at like 12, 11, doing newspapers and stuff like that. Then I did dishwashing under the table, like 13. And then I went to work for McDonald's. But I was always a hustler. I always knew the value of working and responsibility and money. And, you know, one day I came home and I was fly. You know, I had on one of the new Army jackets, new sneakers and stuff like that. And my stepfather accused me of selling drugs, which was completely false. And I think he just wanted to use that as a way to kind of get me out of the house. So what he did was he called the police, and he told the police I was selling drugs, and I pulled a knife on him, and he wanted me out of the house. And my mother wasn't around at this time, so I had to kind of fend for myself. And at that time, the laws were a little bit different. Like the police didn't. I think that's when they just started to have to kind of take somebody out of the house when they get a call back for like a domestic. So they came to the house, and the police didn't even hear my side of the story. They just saw that I was this big, 6'4", 6'6" kid, standing next to this 5'8" guy, and he's, carrying on like I heard him. They escorted me out the house. So as I was being escorted out the house, the cop, for some reason, felt that he had to take it upon himself to break my nose. So he, what he did was he jammed this book, like his book, whatever book he had, the cop book, he jammed that in my face. My nose started bleeding. So nose was bleeding like for like 2 hours, literally. And that was the start of my nasal problems, right? Because I had to get my nose cauterized and all that kind of stuff. But all of that stuff stemmed from that. All of that stuff stemmed from that lie, that was told on me. And that was the first time I ever had a run-in with the law, right? So, just imagine, being 14, having had 6 years of this kind of cadence, and now you get to the police, and the police, they're supposed to be there to protect you, but they do this. So I automatically started not to like the police after that, right? And
correct.
First time I got incarcerated, right? I was incarcerated for that, and I didn't even do anything wrong. So that just helped build a resentment and the anger. And one of the ways that I was able to deal with that, Brother Anthony, is when I was incarcerated, even though I was in there wrongfully, listen, I read my Bible and I stayed busy, right? I got into activities, right? I learned how to buff floors, right? I went back and continued my education. I did things to keep my mind and my spirit occupied, even though I was in that situation. So listen, if you ever get into any situation like that, if you're in a current situation like that I just explained, just keep your head up, kind of focus on yourself, focus on the important things, man. Focus on the Lord. Everything else will fall in place. So I wanted to share that with y'all, let y'all know that I'm also a victim, of abuse, but I was able to mitigate the damage by doing the things that I just mentioned. So lean on family, right? Lean on family, Lord, and just try to always better yourself.
Absolutely. And Ralph, I'm glad you shared it, because especially when it comes to dealing with a lot of young men, they deal with trauma on a lot of different levels, and a lot of guys don't know how to process that level of pain. Like if you're looking at, probably some of the greatest causes of substance abuse, or causes of anger, or causes of disrespect, even towards authority, a lot of that stems from similar situations that you just shared. And I'm glad you opened up, because I think the young man hearing how you didn't just revel in the pain, but you processed it, you got something out of it. And it really cultivated you to be able to do more than just be another stereotypical angry black man. They say, I think a lot of the statistics have shown that a lot of times when guys are introduced to the penal system, that they become habitual offenders. But from what I'm hearing, you didn't stay. Let's talk about, so coming from out of that traumatic situation with abuse, you also had a rap career, but let's talk about, let's build up to some other things that happened during that time. Share some more of your story with these young men.
Yeah, no problem, man. And we've been doing the Ultra Black before Nas came out with the song, right? We weren't trying to go out there and get even. We were going Ultra Black, so we were trying to elevate. I was trying to elevate myself in those situations. But a couple more aspects of my past that I could share is, so I left off at 14, right? So now I'm incarcerated, and that's when I go to live with my grandma for the first time, right? Because I couldn't go back to the house. Went to go live with grandma. Now, my grandma was sick at the time, right? She was, very sick. She was diabetic. She had a nurse come in. I'm 14, 15 years old, and now I'm faced with the responsibility that I had to become, her partial caretaker at that age. So now I'm at a point where I got to think about sacrifice. I sacrificed school, right? I didn't continue going to school like I should have. And that's kind of what led to of high school at an early age. I went back, but originally that's what led to me dropping out because, you know, I had a lot of responsibilities at that age. In addition to that, I had to work, right? Maintain a job. So a lot of my youth, I feel like a lot of my youth had been taken away, since 8 years old because of the circumstances and then now having to deal with the responsibility. You know, I love my grandma, God bless her soul, and she needed somebody to take care of her. So I stepped in, right? That's a real man. So that's what I did at that time. During that time period, I say between age 15 and 18, I think that's the point in my life where I made the most mistakes, right? Because I'm impressionable, right? Don't really have a support system. I'm still young. So the streets had plenty of people on it who would be willing to embrace me. So that's what I gravitated towards, right? I gravitated towards the gangs, you know what I mean? Hanging out, doing things that we were not supposed to do. And that's when I ended up getting into some trouble, some real trouble for the first time. You know, when I was 16 years old, I did a year. You know, I did a year in incarceration because of a drug possession charge, where we were selling drugs. Not something that I'm proud of, but it is something that happened. And during that time frame, you know, I had a lot of uncertainties, man, you know, so I had to go through what I had to go through, and I did my time, right? So after I did that first bid, that's when I got out and I said, you know, I'm going to start doing something creative with my talents and my ability, because I knew I had, you know, a good head on my shoulders. But, you know, if you don't have anybody to really give you direction and things like that, you might not even be able to discover your true potential and your true talent, man, until you just go out there and have these experiences for yourself. So I feel like even though they weren't the best experiences, having those experiences are the things that gave me the insight into who I am and who I could be as an individual. So I started doing creative things like writing, poetry, and then it turned out that I was actually good at it. And I'm not saying that I was good being my own judge, but I'm talking about feedback that I was getting from people, and not just average people, you know, people in the industry, big people that have already brought up artists before. So from that point on, I kind of started to develop this music craft, went back to school at the same time, and then I ended up getting in a little bit more trouble, like around the age of 18. And that's when I went in and did my last stint, which was about 1.5 years. And I said that was the last time. I wrote 3 albums during that time frame. When I got out is when I was able to really focus on my music career. When you're in jail, all you have is time. You know, if you could practice the same regiment that you could practice in jail out here, I mean, you were thorough, because in jail, all you do is have time to plan and strategize. So when I got out, I was able to implement my plan, and, you know, God willing, I got a record deal. Right now I'm in New York. Now I'm traveling, I'm performing, I'm doing things. And it's interesting because the same person I was mentioning before that had all that trouble in turn when I was a child, now was the person that wanted to try to friend me and come around the most, right? So I didn't shy away from a mirror, you know what I mean? You would think that being everything that you went through, or that I went through, you'd probably be negative towards that kind of person, but man, is that sometimes you don't fight fire with fire, you know what I mean? You take the upper hand, and that is even more impactful than fighting the fire with fire, because you fight the fire with fire, that's just showing them a hold on, right? But if you're able to display a certain level of character in those situations, I mean, that's when you really win. You know, that's when you really win, man. So it's been a lot of interesting ups and downs. You know, one thing I could say is anything that you go through, you know, characters are going to be a big determinant factor in how people perceive you, right? And then your word, man, your word is something big. Like, I come from the school where your word is bond. Like, I don't have to sign a contract. I don't have to, ink blood. You tell me something that you're going to do, it's expected that you're going to do it. It's a lot different out there, man. You just got to be careful. And the way that you're perceived is very important, man. But your word is everything. You just keep your word, keep holding your head up. Because I've been through it. And if I could do it, trust me, I know that y'all can do it. Trust me.
So one thing I want to do, Ralph, is just kind of fast forwarding the storyline a little bit, because I kind of want to save a little bit, maybe for even another interview, because there was a defining moment that you went through that if you feel free to share it, you can share it. If not, we'll fast forward it. But I think something that is very important to pull out from your story is that you mentioned you got incarcerated and you never went back. So there was growth that you experienced in life. And I think something that a lot of these young men, some of the principles they're beholden to, keeps them stuck in a rut where they can't grow, where they can't introduce new people into your life. Let's talk about that new support system, that new family that you developed, some things that you started incorporating into your life that really helped you just not only to be a changed man, but stay a changed man.
Yeah, no problem, man. Happy to do so. So one thing I wanted to share is that, and I'll go into your point, I also had gotten shot too when I was 19. And that was a traumatic experience that I bounced back from. Maybe we save that for part 3, elaborate. But my support system is everything for me. I was blessed to have met a woman when I was 19 years old, a little after I had gotten shot the first time, who I ended up marrying. And now we have a beautiful family. We're on our second home now. We both have very good careers, and we're still building, right? We're partners, and that support system was very vital and instrumental in my development today. In other words, I don't think I would be here today without it, because I might have been making the wrong decisions and making the wrong directions. She kind of balances me out to a point where we feed off of each other, and we try to help each other grow as the basis of our support system. And we believe in God. We pray. We go to church. We try to raise our children under the principles of the Bible. But that's very important, y'all. I'm gonna tell you, having a good partner in your corner. I'm gonna say partner because the world has changed now. To recognize a lot of different types of relationships. So I'm gonna say, you got a good partner in your life, you need a support system. And if you have a partner in your life that is not there to help you grow, then it might not be the person that you need, right? Because we don't want to remain stagnant, right? We got to grow, or we got to be better than we were than the last generation. So keep that in mind, y'all. Make sure you got a good support system. If you do have one, utilize them, man. Sometimes we have the people that love us the most right in front of us, but we neglect them the most. We take advantage of them. To look at those people, and if that's something we're doing, try to stop doing that, because those people are right in front of us, and sometimes we don't realize it. We got everything that we need. The Lord provides everything that we need. The world already has everything that we need. We need to recognize it's standing right in front of us. But the support system is big.
Well, I'm glad. I think we lost you here for a minute. But one thing I do want to do is I do want to highlight the importance of young men and young women, of who we entertain, who we surround ourselves with, because a lot of our vision can be negated, it can be built, it can be actually extinguished by people that we keep in our lives. So,
are you still there? Yeah. Yeah, I'm here, cuz for sure.
Good. With that being said, guys, I wanna save something for a further interview, because 20 minutes in, we've covered a lot of ground, but I want to save the best story for last. So, Ralph, before we get out of here, if you got any closing words, man, go ahead and drop it, and we're gonna set you up for a future date.
Yeah, no problem. Story. Yeah, man. There's so much to share. I just feel blessed me with the right people in my lives, right? Family and friends. You know, as we get older, we start to realize what our purpose is. And for me right now, it's making sure that, you know, my family is healthy, you know, my kids are taken care of, and then I'm building some wealth for future generations, you know, something that they could come into so they don't have to struggle as much as, you know, our parents did, or our parents' parents did, or even as much as we as much as we did. And I think right now, having success in life is first spiritual, man, right? You know, if you don't have a relationship with the Lord, you're not gonna. I don't think you're successful. My definition of success is being grounded spiritually, and then everything else follows after that, right? Like a good job, right? A good house, you know, a good partner, but the foundation got to start with Him. So if I got to leave with any parting words, man, I just got to say right now, it feels like we in the end times, right? Definitely, man. You know, put your trust and faith in the Lord, man. Everything will be all right. You got nothing to fear. That's what I got to share, brother.
Good. Well, guys, you have heard it here first, but we deeply dive into another edition of the End Zone Club. But I would like to encourage you, share the word. This is an interview that all young men and women that might be victims to the streets or falling through the cracks, or people that have forgotten to let you know that it's not about how you start, but how you finish. In order to finish strong, you gotta hear the right kind of things. And it starts here with interviews like this. So guys, we want to give it up for Ralph for stopping by with us one more time, sharing more of his story. And stay tuned, because this third interview is going to be bananas. So until next time, y'all be blessed.